Hello, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to News, Games, and More, where I can confirm we will talk about news, we will talk about games, and we will talk about more. Whatever that more is, I unfortunately can't say until we get to it, but it's quite exciting. I'm joined on today's episode by Akeem.
Yo, how's it going, man?
Hey, Akeem, good to see you. Also joined by Mitchell.
Hi.
Hey, Mitchell. And we're also joined by Casey. Hey, Casey.
Hey, guys.
Thank you all for joining me for this episode, and thank you to everyone watching at home. Before we get into the episode, because there's actually quite a bit of news to talk about, did want to mention there is no episode of News, Games, and More tomorrow because we're observing the July 4th holiday on July 3rd in the U.S., so our offices are closed, but we will be back on Monday, somewhat to make up for that, I hope. Please stick around after this episode because we will have Up at Noon at 5 today, even though Up at Noon at 5 is normally on Fridays at 5. It's now today at 5, so stay tuned for that and the naming conventions they'll probably come up with for next week's episode. But we do actually have a ton of news to talk about this week, so I wanted to jump right into the first story, which is that a Fallout TV show is in the works at Amazon from the Westworld creators. I feel like every noun I introduce in that headline feels more insane than the last one. So this came out via both a teaser from Bethesda and Amazon, as well as a Variety report that confirmed Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, the executive producers on Westworld, are developing a Fallout show for Amazon in conjunction with Bethesda. Todd Howard will serve as executive producer on the show, so he'll still be involved on the making of this. A couple of quotes that they provided once they confirmed the show. Joy and Nolan said in a joint statement, quote, "Fallout is one of the greatest game series of all time. Each chapter of this insanely imaginative story has cost us countless hours we could have spent with family and friends. So we're incredibly excited to partner with Todd Howard and the rest of the brilliant lunatics at Bethesda to bring this massive, subversive, and darkly funny universe to life with Amazon Studios." And Todd Howard in a statement said, "Over the last decade, we looked at many ways to bring Fallout to the screen, but it was clear from the moment I first spoke with Jonah and Lisa a few years ago that they and the team at Kilter were the ones to do it right, excuse me." So I want to jump in and hear all of your thoughts about this because we've seen a lot of shows and movie adaptations sort of been in the works recently. Borderlands movie adaptations in the works. Last of Us at HBO is in the works. This, I think, is arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, on the scale of popularity that Fallout has, adaptations that we're looking at. Mitchell, why don't I start off with you? What do you think of this news? Are you excited? Are you a fan of the Fallout series? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I love the Fallout series, and I think this is very exciting news. I think as far as video games go, there's not very many series out there that fit the TV format like Fallout does. It's kind of Walking Dead-esque where it has this world and this setup, and that's kind of that's kind of the series. Every Fallout game takes place in a different part of the world, different vault. It focuses on a different vault and kind of shows a different pocket of the world and how they're dealing with this nuclear apocalypse. And so I think for a Fallout TV show, what I would really like to see is, I don't want to see an adaptation of any of the Fallout games. I want to see a new story, and honestly, I don't even want to see a story about a Vault Dweller. I want to see like a multi-perspective kind of thing where, you have the ghouls living out their life. This is how the ghouls get by in this world. Here's, a different one of the vaults that has their own social experiment going on, because every single one of the vaults has their own social experiment. And yeah, I just think if you tell a story like that and you jump from different perspectives to see how everyone is fighting to survive in this world, I think it could be very compelling in the same way that Walking Dead is compelling.
Yeah, and Mitchell, I think that's the reason why I probably took them so long to kind of find a home for this. They're working with Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan. People know Jonathan Nolan was involved in the writing of the Dark Knight series with Christian Bale, obviously with his brother Christopher Nolan, and he's a great storyteller. So I feel like they're definitely not, working with him. They're not going to just rehash any stories that we already know based on the video games, because look at the Dark Knight series, how this is an iconic character that we know and love. Everyone knows Batman's story, and pretty much he took that character, that iconic character, and put his own spin on it. So I really think like with them working alongside with Bethesda Game Studios, possibly to like maybe drop any sort of like Easter eggs or fan service into the series, working with him, that we're definitely going to get like, in my opinion, I feel like we're going to get like an original story and an original take on this like this vast world in the Fallout franchise. So,
Mitchell,
yeah.
I was just going to say, like, I completely agree with your comparison to the tone of The Walking Dead. That's exactly how it's immediately where my brain went to as well when I heard about this. I think the tone of The Walking Dead, as you mentioned, dystopian, kind of slower pace, a lot of suspense, and I think that kind of tone would serve really well for the Fallout series. I know there's also a fair amount of humor in this as well, but I'm curious if you would all prefer a more dark, suspenseful tone, or would you prefer to have some more humor thrown in as well? And I'm also wondering, like, I immediately thought, oh, it's going to start in the vault like the games generally do, and then they're going to open out to this world. And I'm wondering, would they leave the vault within the first episode? Probably, right?
I think that's the end of the first episode. Like, in my perfect like pitching a pilot for the show, it is them going into the vault sort of at the beginning and then having that like cryo period, and then them waking up and not really sure why they're waking up at that moment, and then them walking out into the world and sort of like giving you that like zoomed out shot that shows you how different the world is at that point in time. Feels like it's just built for TV, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that definitely would be an aspect of a Fallout show that I would want to see, the vault life. But I think Fallout is so much more than just, the vault dweller. It's the raiders, it's the ghouls, it's the super mutants. It's, there's so many different factions in any given Fallout game, and I feel like there's an opportunity here to show like right away what life is like outside the vault, and then have that intersect with, someone who's just coming out of the vault for the first time, maybe. So I would like to see like a Game of Thrones-y kind of thing where, there's all these different subplots happening in different areas of the world, and they interconnect in some way over the course of the series.
Yeah, and humor is a part of the Fallout. So I doubt that they're going to leave that out, because I mean you're going to need to add something that kind of sets it apart from something like The Walking Dead, which I'm pretty sure it'll get comparisons to, just like the HBO series that they're working on for The Last of Us, which we talked about this a while back when it was first announced. Like, my mind immediately went to The Walking Dead, and again, like playing the video games, like it's a very serious video game and a very dark story. So it's like there's no humor in that, there's no quirkiness in that. But Fallout benefits in that aspect. So I'm pretty sure they're definitely going to toss in those quirky moments here and there to kind of like set it apart from something like The Walking Dead or The Last of Us, which will be in existence one day in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's some built-in gags with Fallout. You got the Pip-Boy mascot, who's already, ridiculous with his cute little face, and, horrible violence always happening to him whenever he's testing out any of Vault-Tech's, inventions. The music, yeah. Get some, oh God, I already forgot what
I just want to set the world on fire.
Yeah, I forgot what band does all the Fallout songs. Oh, someone in the chat, let me know.
Fallout songs.
But yeah, what was that?
I just said Fallout songs again.
Drop your Fallout songs in the chat, guys.
Then there's also there's the robots that have like the butler sounding voices, which are always funny. So yeah, ink spots. There you go. That's it. So yeah, I think there's definitely plenty of avenues for humor to lighten up the tone. Compared to, other similar styles of shows.
Yeah, I believe if it's not already, our producer Destin can throw to sort of an audio track to let us hear a little bit of the tease that was shown from Amazon and Bethesda about that, and I'm going to make sure my audio is working so I know if it's playing.
Can he do it? Does he have the TD skill, Destin?
Of course he does.
So that little teaser is pretty much all we have so far of the show. Speaking to your point, Mitchell, I could totally see like the Pip-Boy and them doing sort of silly interstitials of viral marketing in the same way that like they tease new Fallout games by like, here's the Pip-Boy and here's how that Vault Dweller, does these moves and prepares for the apocalypse and all that sort of thing. That feels like custom made for a marketing campaign for the show. I did want to ask, because a few people have pointed out in the comments, ZIND on YouTube said even Fallout show will be bugged, and Kane Child on IGN said it's not official unless the CGI bugs out. And I did have to ask, how can they make a TV show buggy? To
Put
really
rad roaches in it.
Ooh, yeah.
Easy.
Just literal
You can't have a
bugs.
Fallout game without rad roaches, so.
Very true. I do feel like they'll have to give a nod to how glitchy sort of the games can be and how beloved they are for their glitches and all the errors people run into. I don't know what you do on a TV show to make that happen, but given that Westworld is so prominently known for messing with your expectations and perspectives, I feel like they could easily marry those two ideas.
It would be funny if there was just someone who, in the lore of the series is just crazy. But like when you see him, he's just like walking into a wall or something like that, or making 90-degree turns.
Yeah, glitches through a gate.
Or you shoot someone and they ricochet off into the distance.
Oh, if there was a ragdoll death on this show, I would love that so much. That would be so funny. I would really love to see that, and I'm excited to see this. I think it's definitely, Amazon is also the place where we're getting a Lord of the Rings TV show, and so I imagine, given how big that company is, these shows are probably going to have a big budget, and I feel like you need a big budget to really bring the Fallout world to life and not have it feel like kitschy and cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think Amazon and the Westworld creators are great choices for both platform and creators. I mean, Westworld has a lot of stuff going on with it, so if they can pull that off and it be good, I think they could also pull off Fallout. I am drawing a blank of any Amazon shows that have especially impressive or out of this world fantastical sci-fi effects. I recently watched Upload, but that was kind of more, even though there were special effects. Oh, The Boys. You're right.
Oh yeah, yep.
Our
The
producer
Boys.
Destin
So it
from
can't
the
be done.
Ether.
You did. You
suggested
chimed
The
in.
Boys. Yeah. They're definitely leaning to it. I think there were some production executive producer behind the scenes changes at Amazon like a year or two ago, and they basically made it their stated case of like, we need to find our Game of Thrones. Like that has been their mission, and so I think with the Lord of the Rings show, they are definitely trying to make that happen. Whether or not they're successful, we'll obviously have to see when they're actually put into production. Before we wrap up on this discussion, I did want to mention Almighty Hypno Toad in the chat asked, is this pre-recorded? And by me asking that question, no, it's not pre-recorded. The show is live every day on IGN except for tomorrow because we're taking the day off, but we'll be back next Monday.
What if we anticipated his comment though? A day in advance.
I don't have a paper to show you the date because I don't have newspapers. I do want to ask because, we were talking about The Last of Us. There's the Cuphead show on Netflix. There's so many TV shows and movie adaptations happening of games right now. And so it feels like we're finally on the cusp of that becoming a more prevalent thing and hopefully a good thing. Why don't we all go around? Do you all have one thought about a TV show or movie adaptation you'd love to see of a game franchise? Akeem, I'll start with you, or if you need time.
No. It's funny that it's funny you should ask that because I actually thought about it. Like when this news was announced, I was like, it's happening. Like video games are being taken seriously. Like again, with The Last of Us announced like 2 months ago, I believe. And then now this announcement, I was like, I'm glad, studios, or I don't know if it's studios approaching the video game companies or vice versa, but I'm glad that, that this is finally happening. And I was thinking about, I was like, I would love to see a Cyberpunk 2077 series, but I think there's been like numerous versions of that out there in the ethers already. Like as far as like movies are concerned, like isn't that just Blade Runner? Well, I don't know if I would want to.
And we are going to get the anime.
In
2022. So.
I'm talking live
Done by
action.
Studio
Yes,
Trigger.
we're getting that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but I'm talking live action. I want to see that in live action. I just think that'd be pretty amazing. Just with the look of the game. And the story, although I don't know much about the story, I don't think we know much about the story, but I would love to just see that implemented IRL with actual actors, and just what that would look like, with today's technology. So
Totally.
that would be my choice.
Yeah, it would be very exciting to see, especially with, I think you need the right budget. But yeah, that would be very exciting to see. Casey, what about you?
Man, this is such a hard question. I mean, we've already gotten a few, and my gut reaction is like, oh, I've always wanted a Zelda TV show, but I don't actually think that would be that good. We have gotten a Legend of Zelda TV show, and it wasn't good, but I always thought a Legend of Zelda in the style of a quiet Studio Ghibli film or something like Mushishi, where Link is a mostly silent, doesn't talk that much protagonist, and is exploring the world and the smaller stories. So an episodic where he's exploring the world and finding different stories around Hyrule with each episode, I think would be cool, and a really pretty animation style. I mean, the Link's Awakening intro for the Switch version was just kind of like got me thinking about that all over again.
Oh yeah, that made me so just want a TV adaptation of that animation style.
Yeah.
I wish we could have gotten more of that, but yeah, there's a way to do it right, but yeah, it would definitely take the right hand. As we wrap up, Mitchell, what about you?
This isn't something that I personally would want to watch because I'm a cowardly little baby man who hates horror. But I think that the Silent Hill universe would be absolutely perfect for a TV series. It's just got that natural, vibe of a episodic horror show, and you can just do so much with it. I was just going to say,
I thought the first Silent Hill movie was actually really good as far as video game and horror movies go. I think it was pretty up there compared to those two other genres.
You said first. Was there a second? I don't remember.
Yes, there was, and it features Kit Harington, Jon Snow.
How did I miss
and also
that?
Sean Bean dies again.
Of course.
I totally missed that movie.
If I had to pick one, I'm a crazy masochist, and so I would definitely like to see that rumored Kingdom Hearts series finally happen. It would be probably a nightmare of production and logistics to get all of those Disney animators and actors and actresses together, but I would like to see it.
We're getting to The World Ends With You show.
Yeah, that one's cool. I love that game, and I wish there was more of it, so I'm excited for that for sure.
Dornbush wants something Kingdom Hearts related. Shocker.
An absolute shock. Wait until you hear me talk about Crash and Spyro next. But
I changed my mind. A Portal show. That's all I need to say. Let's
that would be cool.
That would be great. Anyway, moving on from that, because I just remembered a very dumb story from my childhood. I'll tell later if I remember the full story. I do want to move on to our next story, though, because Mitchell, I'm happy we have you here because you got to go hands-on with Mortal Shell. Which, for those who maybe have not seen, we premiered the first gameplay of it on the Summer of Gaming earlier in June on IGN, and this kind of came out of nowhere earlier this year, I think, with a teaser trailer, and it's a small team that's been working in secret for a while on a Soulsborne, Souls-like game, and so obviously the immediate Dark Souls and Bloodborne comparisons happen, but you went hands-on with it. So what did you think of your experience with it?
I was very pleasantly surprised. Hearing the words like indie developed Soulsborne game made by 15 people does not immediately instill a lot of confidence. But man, this game really nails the atmosphere and the feel of a Souls game. You can see some gameplay right here, but not only does it have the look and feel of a Souls game, but it also does some really interesting things that really separate it from the rest of the genre. Most notably is the fact that you can't block in this game. There's no shield. So right there you saw what you do instead. You can actually harden your body into something like stone. And basically anything that hits you while you're hardened will bounce off and it'll give you like a free hit. But the catch to it is that it's on a cooldown. It's on a pretty lengthy cooldown, so you can't really rely on it as much as you would your shield in a Dark Souls game. But on the other side of that, you can do it in the middle of your attack, so you don't have to play this game of waiting for an opening to strike, because if you have your harden available, you can just strike, harden in the middle of the attack, they'll hit you, bounce off, and you can keep the offense going. So it becomes like this really interesting dance of balancing your cooldowns, balancing your aggression, knowing when to back off, knowing when to dodge instead of use your harden, and it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Mitchell, can you tell us more about the mechanic of the actual mortal shells?
Yeah. So in this game, there's no real class system. You don't choose a class going into it. Instead, you find what are known as mortal shells. And right there, I switched from one to the other. And basically what they do is they each have their own set of stats and skills. Haros, the one right here, he is basically a more tanky kind of character. So he has more life, he has less stamina, he deals more damage. But most of his skill tree is focused on his survivability. On the other hand, you have Teal, this guy right here, who is more stamina focused. So he has less health, a huge stamina bar, so he can constantly be dodging. He actually has a vanish instead of a regular roll or dash dodge, which allows him to avoid taking damage in situations where Haros, if he just dodged, he would have gotten hit. And then his skills focus on being able to have a % chance to take stamina damage instead of health damage. He has a bunch of skills that are focused on poison, whether it's being able to deal poison or being able to be more resistant to poison. So yeah, and those are just two of the multiple shells that are in this game.
And you can freely switch between them?
You can't freely switch between them. There's areas where you can swap. Like you'll just see a shell lying in like a little coffin area, and there you can switch, or you can get an item that lets you switch on the fly. But other than that, you're basically set with whatever shell you take into a fight, unless you have one of those items.
Okay.
But yeah, it does a lot of really interesting things, and the shell system is actually kind of similar. If you've played Code Vein, there's a blood code system in Code Vein that's kind of similar to, but the ability or the inability, I should say, to switch them on the fly is one of the things that really sets it apart. So yeah, I'm really excited for Mortal Shell. There's a beta happening tomorrow that you can sign up for. So if anyone's interested, I highly recommend checking it out, and I am very much looking forward to seeing how this game develops over the course of its development process.
And I assume the beta is for PC only?
I believe so, yes.
If it's not on Switch, why would I play? It's PC only, our producer confirmed. Thank you, Dustin. I did want to bring up a comment sort of to talk about this game and the genre at large. Basket Case 9483 on IGN said, I was unsure about this game at first, but it's looking better and better the more I see of it. With both this game and the Demon's Souls remake on the way, it's a pretty exciting time to be a Souls fan. And then also Kane's Legacy said, if it ain't from, don't want none. And I was sort of curious, for those on the panel, Mitchell included, of course, who do have experience with the Soulsborne genre. I, for one, think it's always great when other people come into that realm, because it just naturally creates not just competition, but naturally allows the people who originated it and the people who have sort of been perfecting it to find maybe new ideas that they didn't consider and further reiterate on that. Like, competition to me just sort of raises all boats, and I think it's an exciting thing to have when new entrants into the genre come in. How do you all feel about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that Demon's Souls really created this genre just by being something completely different. Souls-like is now a genre, and every game that I've played that has kind of been within that genre has added something else to the table. With the Surge, it was you could target different body parts, and that would affect what kind of gear you would get. So you had, and there are other enemies that you had to target certain body parts in order to deal substantial damage. Code Vein has the blood code system. Mortal Shell does this thing with hardening and the actual mortal shells. So yeah, it's very interesting to see all these different companies put their own ideas into the mix. And I'm interested to see what Elden Ring does to either take any of these ideas, or if they're just going to do their own thing and show us a new way to do it, which I think is really exciting. I cannot wait for Elden Ring. Cannot wait to see more of Elden Ring.
Yeah,
Probably
I
gonna
want to
have
see
to
more
be
of
waiting.
Elden Ring too.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think more in a genre that people obviously love is usually never a bad thing. I mean, I say that knowing that, for example, the genre of Metroidvania is completely bloated and there's way too many of them, even though people really like them. And I know there's even a trend of more card battlers coming out because of the success of Slay the Spire. But I think the genre of Souls-like is still not bloated. I still don't think there are too many of these games. So I welcome more, especially when they do things a little bit differently, which, for example, as Mitchell just ran through all of this, how the differences are. I say thumbs up. It keeps it refreshing. It keeps people interested. I mean, there's only so many times you can replay Bloodborne, though I know some of us on the IGN staff have probably replayed that game like 20 times by now.
I'm sorry, real quick. I got to give a shout out to my boy Phil in the chat. He says it's my boy Mitch. But it's my boy Phil.
Well, I was just going to respond to the comment right above him, which I assume he was responding to. And Noah had said, "Who are these people? If you're wondering what our names are, thank you for wondering who we are. It's very nice of you." I'm Jonathan. With me is Akeem, Casey, and Mitchell, and we're talking about all the news, the games, and the more that could be happening today. Stick around for right after the show for Up at Noon at 5. I do want to move on to the next topic because we do have a few stories to get through, and I think this is a really, really big one that we can cover a lot of ground with. But sort of buried in the announcement of today, NBA 2K21 had its release date for current gen platforms confirmed. It's on September 4th, and it's also coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X in holiday 2020, which is the only release date we'll get until the consoles actually get release dates themselves. 2K confirmed the next-gen version is being built from the ground up for next-gen systems, and the only way to sort of get a cross-buy version of it, there's no Xbox Smart Delivery or anything similar on the PlayStation side. It's you have to buy the Mamba Forever Edition, which is the special edition for $99.99 US, which will feature Kobe Bryant on the cover. But sort of buried within all of this is the fact that the PS5 and the Xbox Series X versions will cost $69.99 US, nice, which is $10 more than the standard 50. We're never going to get through this. Sorry. Than the standard $59.99 that we've had for this generation and the last generation. We really haven't seen a wide price jump since the launch of the 360 with Call of Duty 2, I believe it was, and some EA games that moved things from 50 to 60. So that's a pretty big increase, after so few increases throughout time. The UK will see a £5 increase from $59.99 to $64.99. If you can hear it, the train outside my window is very upset about that. But I wanted to ask all of you, how do you feel? This is right now, NBA 2K21 is the only game confirmed to have this $10 price hike. If this is a wide thing that we see going into next gen, I guess my big questions are you surprised? Do you think they should have that price change? And what do you think this singular game's price change means for the rest of the industry? Akeem, Casey, I'll start with you.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm definitely not surprised. Am I sad? Yes. Surprised? No, not really. I mean, the prices of Nintendo 64 and PS1 games were $50, and they increased about 10 years later with the PS3 and Xbox 360. That was around 2009, I think, but it's been about 10 years, so it makes sense for the games to jump up another $10. And that isn't only including the inflation, which I assume is actually a lot more than that, but it also takes into account that games are a lot more complicated to make nowadays. Like, I would assume that a game like The Last of Us 2, for example, would be so much more expensive to make than, I don't know, the original, like Mario 64 or something. So I think it makes sense all around for that price to jump. I know for handheld games also jumped in price with the 3DS and went from the common like $30 for the Game Boy games to $35 for the 3DS. So not surprised. I think most games will I think this is going to become the standard price of games in the next gen.
Yeah, I agree. And Casey, to your point, like the whole comparison to Mario 64 and The Last of Us, I'm pretty sure there was no mocap in Mario 64. Am I right or wrong about that? Was there any mocap in that involved, like with any actors?
Miyamoto
Charles
did
Martinet
all-
actually did all of the mocap
Yeah.
in Mario 64. A source tells me.
Well, yeah. So but because of that, like we got things like that happening, like with these games, like we're taking actual actors and we're like putting dots all over them, and like we're tracing their movement and of their face and their bodies. So like games are becoming a lot more complex. So I'm not surprised that they bumped up the price, and that this is probably. I'm guaranteeing you. I'm not going to guarantee it because I can't see the future yet. But I'm pretty sure this means that games possibly starting towards the end of this year are definitely going to be bumped up moving forward for next gen consoles. It's unfortunate because I don't think any of us really want to keep paying more money. But I guess what that tells me is I need to make more money. That's what that's what that's telling me. It's going to be a reality for us very soon. And also, not to deviate too much, but shout out to 2K for the Mamba tribute that they're doing for Kobe. For those of you all that are not sports inclined, the Black Mamba was Kobe Bryant's persona that he gave to himself to kind of separate his personal life from his professional life. So the Black Mamba took care of things on the court. Kobe took care of things, the things that Kobe Bryant was going through in his life at the time. So shout out to 2K for this great tribute. I was just going to get this digitally, but I'm definitely gonna support and buy a hard copy of this.
Yeah, as we're showing on the video right now, the Mamba Forever edition comes with some specific portrait homages to Kobe that will be included on the box art, which I think are great. And honestly, I love stylized box art, so I would love to see more of that in the future.
It looks really cool.
Yeah, it's a really great thing. I do want to, before getting too deep into the price bump discussion, I do want to briefly mention, just to see how you all feel about it. I think it's not great in comparison to what other companies are doing to have this be sort of how they announce it, but that the upgrade from one gen to the next is tied to buying that special edition, whereas even though it's a limited time offer, something like Madden is going to offer that for free, and of course there's the Xbox Smart Delivery Service. How do you all feel about sort of like the non-standardization of that upgrade system that we have right now between these two generations?
Sorry, so you mean like buying the Xbox One version and then having to upcharge to get to
So if you buy the Mamba Forever edition, let's say on Xbox One, you will get the Xbox Series X version, but that's the only way to do that without buying just both games separately. You have to buy the special edition versus something like Madden, which is offering a limited time availability to, if you buy PS4 or Xbox One to upgrade to the next gen version, then of course Xbox has the Smart Delivery Service. Avengers is offering free upgrades to next gen if you buy PS4 or Xbox One. We're just sort of seeing there's like a non-standardization of this, and I think it's partially because this isn't something most devs are used to having to deal with. But how do you feel about seeing all these different approaches?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there should be a standardization across the board for it. I think the challenge with that is if they're going to be charging more money for the next gen version of it, well then you can't really do the cross buy, so to speak, or the smart delivery where if you buy it on one you get it on the other. I don't know. I almost feel like this is 2K kind of testing the water. In terms of the price, to see how people react to it. I'm also curious to know, NBA 2K is a series that is notorious for microtransactions.
Yeah. And
I'm curious to know what the microtransaction strategy will be in 2K21 and whether the cost up front is going to be higher in exchange for maybe less intrusive microtransactions. I think that might be giving 2K a little too much credit, but I'm very curious to know more about what NBA 2K21 is going to look like once we find out all those other features with it.
Yeah, it's really interesting to note that we don't really have any sort of concept of what they're going to be doing post-launch when it comes to microtransactions and DLC and season passes. But I think a lot of players' reaction will probably be based on if this $10 change does reflect that we won't see as many paid for season passes and things like that down the line. Another curious thing to me, like sort of on a worker level, is whose pocket is that $10 going to? Obviously, it's to many pockets through the whole chain of developing a game, but where is it going to? Just CEOs? Is it going to actually, the people making the game? Because that will matter for the stability of the industry as we go forward. And I think it raises a lot of questions as we get into next gen, which isn't.
Yeah, I think another really important question to take from this is what it's going to mean for Game Pass. If games are $10 more expensive, that makes Game Pass a much more enticing, or just subscription-based gaming, much more enticing than it would normally be. And I wonder if subscription gaming is going to be the future, if it's not already.
Yeah, I mean, my budget, even before this $10 increase, like I would buy maybe one new video game a month. I would get maybe 12 to 13 new games a year, which isn't that many when considering how many games are coming out this year. I don't know how people keep up with it, but service like Xbox Game Pass makes that so much more accessible for so many more people, and its value seems to only be getting better.
Yeah.
Our
TD said that we can write it all off on our taxes. So thank you, Destin,
Thanks.
for the tax advice.
All right, that's what I'm doing then.
But
Thank you for that, seriously.
for those who can't write it all off on their taxes, and it does matter, sort of some people can only buy 2 or 3 games a year, and then with that $10 increase, you do see, like you were all saying, something like Game Pass does become even more of an enticing option. And right now, that is only a thing available through Xbox. PlayStation and Nintendo don't have something similar. Obviously, Nintendo Switch Online has the free retro games, and PS Plus has free games, but it's not nearly equivalent. So we're like 3 or 4 months away from next gen, and I feel like we just have so many unanswered questions about what it's going to look like. It's kind of crazy to me. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
I don't think we'll get a clear sense of what next gen is going to be or what it's going to be like until even after the system's release. And I feel like that's been the case for the previous systems as well, because we don't really see the, max potential until it's been out for a couple of months and developers have had more time with the different engines. Like I know the new Unreal Engine isn't going to even be available to use for a few months after this year. So
yeah. I also think that we're kind of in the middle of a standoff between Sony and Microsoft, where they're each waiting for the other one to blink. They don't want to announce something and then I think the PS3 and Xbox the PS4 and Xbox One launch was so telling with how Xbox came out, announced something. PlayStation immediately did a conference afterwards, said, hey, all those bad things that Xbox is doing, we're not doing those, and they got all this goodwill. I really think both companies are trying to avoid that kind of scenario, so that's why we don't know a lot about what's going to happen with these next-gen consoles.
Yeah, I've been saying a lot on our PlayStation show, Podcast Beyond, since we obviously talk about PS5 most weeks, that pretty much I think PlayStation will wait to the last moment to mention price because Microsoft seems a little more bullish on making sure they can tell you why you should buy an Xbox Series X versus PlayStation, which has been holding things very close to the chest. Of course, we'll be talking about all of the next-gen news as it happens throughout the months to come. If you're just tuning into the middle of the show and you're wondering why we're not talking about Fallout or Mortal Shell, we did earlier in the episode of this episode of News, Games, and More, so feel free to rewind or watch once the full episode is up later. And please stick around to the end, because right after this, up at noon at 5 on Thursday, it's normally on Fridays, but you get the title, will be happening right after the show. I do want to move on to the next one because it does tease, even though June is over officially, I can't believe it, but June is over, and a lot of big gaming events sort of came and went, especially with E3 being canceled. There are so many more new events almost daily. We are still waiting for more games to be announced, apparently, because Breaking Bad's Giancarlo Esposito said he will be starring in a mystery game project. Esposito was speaking to Collider recently about playing Gus Fring on Breaking Bad and how it changed his life, and they talked about a bunch of different topics in the interview. He eventually talked about motion capture and that style of acting for a big upcoming game, and he said, quote, "This video game I did, which is going to be huge, can't mention it." And that's it. So Esposito wouldn't say if that technology was being used in this specific video game or if he had other motion capture projects, what was going on, but he was just sort of talking about this new style of acting. Of course, he's most recently, probably for many people, been on The Mandalorian is probably where you've most recently seen him, in addition to Better Call Saul, where he plays Moff Gideon on The Mandalorian, not on Better Call Saul. That would be very interesting, though, but that's a conversation for another show. I do want to ask you all, best guesses. There are still a lot of big games probably to be announced either for next-gen launch or for, the year to come. If you had to pick a game, what game do you think Giancarlo Esposito would be in?
I would bet a whole $5 that it's Call of Duty.
Bug Snacks.
Huh.
Bugsnax.
Destin thinks it's going to be Bugsnax.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, if Giancarlo Esposito is in Bugsnax, that is the most unexpected but perfect marriage of things. I would happily take that. But so you think Call of Duty?
I would bet a whole $5 that it's Call of Duty.
That's not big. That's not big spending there, Mitchell.
It's all I can afford.
Are you confident in this bet? I just thought maybe you weren't that
expensive.
confident. Because if you're paying $5, it's like, I'm not that confident that he's really going to be in it. So $2, yeah.
I was thinking about doing $2, but I bumped it up to $5 for a little more confidence in it.
Oh, so you are a big spender. Okay. All right. Giancarlo, I don't know. Like, the thing is, like, he's a bit of a talker. I had the privilege of speaking with him last year at Comic-Con on the Boys red carpet. Apparently they were filming season 2, and because I was like, are you in this season? They were filming. He's going to be in the season 2. That's why he was there. And he did the majority of the talking. I think I asked like one question and then he just kept going. So I'm surprised he didn't accidentally say the name of the game. Like, oh, I'm going to be in something.
I mean, the thing about him is, he's so eloquent, and like obviously this is why he gets so many of these great roles, is because you can just listen to him talk. But he also, as he's played so many great villains on these shows and enigmatic characters, that he can kind of talk and say not much, and you're like, oh wow, that was impactful. Because he knows how to act. He's great. So, but yeah, I'm surprised he didn't say.
And apparently this game is coming out next year, and it's going to be big. So, I honestly can't guess because we don't know what the landscape looks like next year as far as like big games that are coming out. Bugsnax.
Talking about Bugsnax.
I keep thinking about Bugsnax. Destin is in my head.
The slow fade of Bugsnax footage is just perfect. I love that. Casey, what about you?
I'm assuming it's a game that has not been announced yet, or else I think maybe he could have talked about it, right? So I'm assuming we're going to see this in a trailer, and it's going to be a big reveal, kind of like how we saw Keanu Reeves revealed for Cyberpunk. I have no idea what it's going to be. I know, so Big Phil 008 says it's going to be Elden Ring. Maybe? Who knows? But we don't know anything about that game. Like, my instincts are like, it's going to be a really story-driven game with like really hard-hitting acting because Gus Fring, that was his character, but Giancarlo is a great actor. Death Stranding 2.
Right.
Oh,
wow.
Okay, all right. But
I mean,
so soon? Wait a minute. Oh,
Yeah, Death Stranding 2 is coming out next year?
Another Strand game?
it's already been out
I'm
for a
in.
year. It came out before Death Stranding 1, so you could have been playing it this whole time. He was great in it. Yeah, no, Mitchell, I get Call of Duty, especially because they do really make a big deal out of having celebrities in their games. I believe Kit Harington was in one a couple of years
Kevin
back.
Spacey.
Yeah. But
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's cool.
Destin, bleep me when I say that name.
We're live. He can't. It's not pre-recorded. But yeah, it definitely makes sense. But we'll have to see. It's kind of crazy that we are this far into the year and presumably, big games still aren't announced yet. Sort of to your point, Mitchell, normally we know about Call of Duty by now. Like normally we've seen it in pre-E3 shows. It's been at E3. They have not said a word about Call of Duty. It's a really interesting place for that series right now.
Where do you think the Call of Duty announcement's going to come? Are they going to do? Is Activision going to do their own big Call of Duty event, or are they going to tie it to Microsoft?
That's how they used to do their own events. I wouldn't be shocked if they do something like we've already seen. I think some people have data mined or found teases, but like I wouldn't be shocked if it's something that stems from Warzone, because Warzone has been so big for them. I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to sort of incept the announcement into that game and then grow from there.
Yeah, and Sledgehammer's up next, right?
So that was the plan, but a report from Kotaku, I believe last year, said that their game was being scrapped. This is all unconfirmed, of course, but that their game was being scrapped and that they were working in concert with Treyarch to do a new Black Ops. Yeah. So that's where we stand on the rumors right now. But we'll have to see. Mentioning some comments, though, from people in the IGN comments. Boba Fetish 6602 said, calling it now, they're taking Hello Kitty in a very different direction. And I'd watch that. I'd watch Giancarlo Esposito voice a very cute animated character. That would be perfect. Give me like an Agretsuko. I don't watch that show, but give me him in that show, and I would happily watch that spinoff.
Yeah, and we're watching him in The Mandalorian right now, and another possibility is, of course, him being part of Star Wars Squadrons, which would be a very cool crossover, which is something that Star Wars has been doing a lot more these days, of crossing over the different mediums.
Yeah, they've been very interconnected recently. And speaking of that, Babu Frick 23, I assume Babu Frick's 23rd brother, said, can't help but get excited, especially after the quality of Fallen Order and Mandalorian, and should say, like, there is no confirmation that he is in a Star Wars project for this game. So it could be something totally different. It could be Star Wars. But like you were saying, Mitchell, we've got the Squadrons announcement. We presume Jedi Fallen Order is going to continue at some point with the sequel, since they said EA is looking at that as a franchise. Yeah, it'll be really exciting to see, but I think whatever it is, he'll probably be pretty good, I would assume. Wanting to move on, though, story 5 that we're going to get to right now. I don't know why I told you what number story it is. We learned
for those keeping track.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at the run of show, and it's technically our Friday. It's 4:45. Cut me some slack. We got word that a Clone High reboot is on the way. MTV Studios is reviving the animated series with Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who you might know from Into the Spider-Verse, and they were on Solo, but then Solo didn't happen. They were behind the Lego movie. They've been involved in a bunch of different projects, and this was one of their earliest. MTV Studios is rebooting the short-lived Clone High with the two of them, and Bill Lawrence, who's the creator of Scrubs, are all returning. While critically acclaimed, Clone High was canceled after one season, in part because of international outrage over the show's depiction of Gandhi. I did not know that. According to MTV's press release, the new Clone High will reimagine the original series, presumably updating the show's satire from all of that early 2000s pop culture with something a little more modern. So we're not sure if it will follow up on the season 1 cliffhanger that happened on that show and be sort of more of a reboot instead. Chris McCarthy, the president of Viacom CBS, said, quote, we're thrilled to reunite with Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and Bill Lawrence to reimagine this cult classic as we rapidly grow our portfolio of beloved and iconic adult animation series. Comedy Central recently greenlit 2 new seasons of Beavis and Butthead, and will also be the home for a Daria spinoff focused on Jodie. Other animated sitcom revivals recently have been a new Boondock series on HBO Max, and of course the Invader Zim and Rocko's Modern Life films that came to Netflix in the last year or so. Is anyone on the panel a fan and aficionado who can speak to Clone High? Because I know it's beloved, but it is one of those little scene shows that I don't know personally.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just glad that it wasn't a figment of my imagination, because I felt like hopefully I'm not alone in this. I thought I was like the only one that ever watched Clone High, Mission Hill, The Oblongs, like all these weird animated shows.
I remember those two, but there's a huge blank spot in Clone High. I recognize the Joan of Arc character, and then that's about as far as my memory goes.
Yeah, I'm the same as Casey. I recognize those characters. I don't think I've ever seen the show. I've probably just seen commercials of it.
Yeah, it was very short-lived, and it was on like I think like a late night block on MTV, I believe. So it's like and it wasn't, at least like I said, I watched it. I don't recall ever talking to anyone about it. It was just like something that I watched. I'm like, oh, cool, that's Abe Lincoln and that's Gandhi. This is interesting. This is an interesting premise for a show. I find it interesting that it's Viacom, I believe, right? I find it interesting that Viacom, you know, they're going back into the archives and like looking at like their old animated shows and like reviving them for a newer generation. I'm kind of curious how they're gonna like reboot this. I mean, like knowing that the reason why this was actually canceled was because of the international outrage over the way Gandhi was depicted in it. Because since the ending of this show and today, unfortunately, it's just a cycle of life. A lot of people have died, so there are new characters that they can actually, I guess, put into this reboot. So, I mean, you kind of don't want history repeating itself. If you kind of like, if you have like if they do bring back Gandhi or bring back any other character, or not character, but public figure that might, you know, shake things up or rattle the cages again internationally. So, but this it was an interesting take on these iconic characters. I'm kind of surprised that they're bringing it back, because I didn't, again, like I said, I didn't think it was that. I was the only one that I knew that watched it. So I'm excited for this, just to see what it looks like today.
I think a part of it being brought back is because so many, honestly, film and TV journalists who love the show are now working in the industry and have been asking Lord and Miller anytime they're on an interview, when are you bringing back Clone High? And they're like, well, now we can answer that question definitively. But sort of to your point about Viacom, CBS looking back at their history of their portfolio to bring stuff back, I think they've probably seen a lot of success on CBS All Access with Star Trek. I don't know how Twilight Zone has been doing, but Star Trek Discovery has been a really big hit for them, and I think sort of the like biggest thing that they've been able to hang their hat on. And so it's not surprising to me that they're sort of leaning into these cult classic series, even if it is, like you were saying, Akeem, something you didn't know anyone else watched. Apparently there are enough people that did watch it and have been asking about it to bring it back. But we'll have to see.
I mean, I'm also hoping, since they're looking back at their archives, I'm hoping that they bring back, I know they did shortly, I hope they bring back Celebrity Deathmatch. Again, like I know they brought it back shortly for a period, just because, you know, there's a lot of new celebrities I would love to see go up against each other today. So like I kind of want them to kind of bring that whole claymation animation style. What's that? What's
your ideal match? Your ideal death match?
Oh man, I've been waiting to say this for a very long time. I don't know.
I know.
I don't. Who do I want to go up against each other? I want to see Kanye versus Travis Scott.
Ooh.
And not in a rap battle, but a death battle.
Yeah, but claymation, of course.
I love Celebrity Deathmatch. MTV used to do those, or was it MTV that did it?
Yeah, it was MTV.
So
yeah.
They used to put on marathons all the time, and I don't know why my parents thought it was okay for like 8-year-old me to watch those, but I totally did, and I had a good time doing it.
Would they still get Mills Lane? Is Mills Lane even still capable of doing this?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
No idea. I'm looking up right now. I think
Judge Mills Lane. I remember that guy.
Yeah. Still alive.
I feel like
as far as Wikipedia is telling me.
Let's get it on.
Mills Lane was the glue that held Celebrity Deathmatch together.
Yeah, and the two commentators. Don't forget that. Like they were pretty iconic.
Well, we're getting Clone High, Daria spinoff, and Beavis and Butthead. So honestly, Celebrity Deathmatch is probably not far behind.
Right. Yeah.
It feels like only a matter of time. Nostalgia always wins out, it seems.
Mm-hmm. And they're bringing Beavis and Butthead back to kind of it's going to be focusing. They're trying to like build like an animation block, I believe, right on Comedy Central. So like kind of surrounding South Park, I believe which I find kind of. I find that kind of interesting. I don't know. I'm curious why. Like, why are they're trying to create like an animation block, but they haven't found any gold in anything new. So why? What are you? I mean, I'm here for it because I'm here for a Beavis and Butthead reboot, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to find like a comet or an animation block on Comedy Central just yet.
Worth mentioning also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. It's worth mentioning. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, worth mentioning also. This is the second attempted revival of Beavis and Butthead. It did not go very well the first time it tried to come back. So I'm interested to see what they can do differently this time around, because Beavis and Butthead is really a series that is born of and made of the 90s. So yeah, they're gonna have to find a way to bring that up to date.
I hope they do exactly what they did with Rocco's Modern Life, the Netflix special, and it's like they're stuck in the 90s, but they're just brought to modern times. I'm hoping that they do. I don't know if you guys saw the Rocco's Modern Life. Apparently, Rocco and his friends were blasted off into space at the end of the 90s, and then they came back to Earth. Hey, everything's changed. What's going on here? And they were just all confused as to what's going on. I hope that's what happens.
Awesome.
I want them to be stuck in the 90s.
Yeah. I will say
a little different tonally between Beavis and Butthead and Rocco's Modern Life, but
just a little.
I personally can't wait for the Angry Beavers reboot that I'm sure is going to come at some point. But no, yeah, if I've learned anything about Hollywood in the last 5 years, if there's something one person out there loves, they will try to find a way to reboot it. But thankfully, we don't have to just look forward to reboots coming out in the future. Sort of as we wrap up, I did want to mention we started the show talking about a video game adaptation and are also probably going to end it talking about a video game TV show adaptation because a My Friend Pedro TV series with John Wick creator has been confirmed. The show will be a half-hour dramedy, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Derek Kolstad, the writer of the first 2 John Wick movies and a co-writer of the third, will write the series and executive produce. The uncredited co-director of the first John Wick and director of Deadpool 2 and Hobbs and Shaw, David Leitch, will also executive produce the project. The game, of course, tells the story of a person who wakes up in a butcher shop where a banana named Pedro tells them about the secret and nasty operations of the butcher shop. The banana then teaches them how to commit murder. The creator of My Friend Pedro, Victor Agren, I might be mispronouncing that, said the game was inspired by the works of Kolstad and Leitch, so it's a, quote, dream come true to have them adapting the game. They said, quote, it's hard to find the words to describe the journey this game has taken. A dream come true would be one way to put it, but in truth, I could have never in a million years even began to imagine things to work out the way they have. So we have this TV adaptation coming. We don't really have a home for it, but of course we just were talking about the Fallout TV adaptation. A Disco Elysium TV series is in the works as well. Devolver Digital co-founder Mike Wilson is happy to see that these indie games are getting the Hollywood treatment, which makes a lot of sense. Mitchell, because I know your experience with My Friend Pedro, how do you feel about this getting a TV adaptation?
Oh, it's so weird, Jonathan. It's so weird. The story of this game is literally all you said. That's the whole narrative for the whole game. A banana tells you to do bad things. But I will say the game has some of the coolest action scenes of any game I've ever played. It's just, all about nonstop, ridiculous Hollywood style action. You're like on a skateboard, you're jumping in the air, shooting people, and then you land on the skateboard, and then you do a little twirl and shoot other people that are in the area. It's just absolutely ridiculous in the best possible way. And if they can do a TV series that does the action of this game justice, it will be one of the coolest TV shows around in terms of action. So, and if it has the John Wick director on it, that's pretty exciting. So, I think there's potential in the action. I don't know what they're going to do with the story, I'm excited to find out.
They're going to keep it the same. You're being told to do things by means of a banana. Like, look at this. I got bananas right here. I'm so excited. I don't just love my potassium. I brought it there because I'm excited for this. I just feel like, Devolver, I feel like they have a lot of quirky games that kind of lend themselves to just, I would say animated shows or an animated adaptation or something. Like, look at Broforce. There's is it Hotline Miami? Is that another one?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, I feel like this game when I first read about it and saw the video. First off, I was like, it looks amazing, much like Mitchell said. But then, like, reading about the premise, like a banana's telling you to do this, I was like, that's kind of odd. But again, like, it has that quirkiness that I would love to see adapted. And I was psyched for this announcement.
So
yeah, and I also just want to say real quick, like, congrats to the guys that made this game. What a success story this game is. Mm-hmm. It started out as a Flash game on Newgrounds, and now it's getting its own TV show, which is crazy.
Yeah, kudos to them.
This is so much more surprising than hearing that, for example, like Fallout or The Last of Us is getting an adaptation, because this is such small game in comparison, like small scale. And I'm curious, Mitchell, like, do you find out, I never beat it, do you find out the origin of the banana in the game?
Oh gosh, it's been so long. You kind of do, and then there's a big twist reveal at the end that I won't spoil.
I was going to
Cool.
say, yeah.
But
I'll watch the TV show.
yeah, I'm curious to see how it handles it.
Where do you guys...
All right. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. I'm being told by our producer we have a hard out in, I think, 30 seconds. Happy UFO Day, I have been told to say. There we go. Oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. I would have wished
the government put out.
I would have wished so many more happy UFO days. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching News, Games, and More. Thank you to Akeem, Casey, and Mitchell for joining me for this very fun episode. Please stick around to watch Up at Noon at 5 on not its normal day, but on today. It's happening right after this, so stay around to watch Max and Brian and their wacky shenanigans. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. We hope you're safe and we hope you're well. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.